G'day guys and gal. If anyone in the entire setting was to be the Warhammer 40,000, it would be the Big E, the Emperor of Mankind, the God Emperor. Whatever you want to call this absolute Chad, one thing remains consistent. Videos about him get a lot of views. I have spoken at length about the Golden Skeletor / Galaxy's Best Lithium Battery, discussing what would happen if he died and what would happen if he came back to life, but I've never actually deep dived into if his resurrection is actually possible within the means of the current lore. Like sure, GW can always conjure up a plot device to bring him back, like with what happened with Cole and the Ynnari for G-Man's resurrection, but is there actually a method that can be used right now, and have other methods actually already been tried? Before we get started, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The brands I promote on this channel are always brands that I genuinely use. None encapsulate this more so than Joology, a skincare brand that works and that I've been working with and using for years now. Joology makes life easy by simply asking you to fill out a quick survey and then using those results to create a custom skincare routine for you. For me, my morning cream has some sunscreen in it because Australia copped the short end of the stick when it comes to having an ozone layer. And I'll say it, the results speak for themselves. I've never had less oily, more even and tighter skin than I do now. Like I literally have better skin now than I had when I was 21, and that is around the time I started using Joology. So as you can see, it literally works. Joology doesn't just do skincare though, they also have a range of great smelling, effective hygiene products, the kind of stuff that makes you actually feel and smell clean. The deodorant slaps hard. The best part is that Joology is offering a wildly generous 70% off your first skincare package, as well as an additional 50% off a product of your choice when you use my link, QR code, or code Majorkill70, so you'd be nuts not to at least try it. Cheers to Joology for sponsoring this video. Today we'll go over all attempts to revive the Emperor, as well as other things I believe could be attempted that have a more than 0% chance of working. We'll also discuss why every attempt has failed so far, and if bringing the Big E back to life is even a good idea at all. Let's get into it. Okay, so to understand how we can go about the Emperor's resurrection, we need to understand what level of dead he currently is. I know that the idea of death having levels to it is a bit odd, but just bear with me. When the Emperor was interred on the Golden Throne, he was still alive. Barely alive, but alive, with a throne designed to keep him alive while also simultaneously killing him. Thus, he isn't like dead, more like vividly lucid dreaming while in a coma. After all, he is still directing the Astronomicon, fighting the Chaos Gods in the Warp, and occasionally directly intervening in affairs, with some custodies even having the ability to receive visions and messages from the Emperor that leak out of their dreams and into theirs. So he isn't dead, like how Guilliman wasn't dead. So a resurrection, or more like an awakening, is definitely on the table. I first want to go over actual in-lore attempts to revive the Emperor before we get a bit more theoretical. There was actually an entire novel dedicated to the Emperor's resurrection attempt, and it was fucking wild. Basically, when the Great Rift opened, a lot of spicy stuff from the Dark Cells was stolen away. Many of these have been slain, destroyed, or recaptured, but some have not. One of these was the Vexen Cage, a device that could amplify someone's psychic power by 1,000,000 times if they stood in it. As you can imagine, it's a pretty fucking dangerous device and also quite hard to use. For almost every psyker, standing in this cage and turbocharging their powers by that much would instantly result in them exploding, getting atomized, or other nasty shit happening. Most psykers can barely control their powers as it is. A boost like that would be nuts. As for the very few psykers who could survive the power boost, well then now you're dealing with a literal god. Not to mention the cage also draws power from all the people on the planet it was on when activated, which then proceeds to kill everyone. It was not a nice device, but was likely kept intact in the Dark Cells in case the Emperor decided he wanted to mind nuke the entire universe or bend Tzeentch over backwards someday by getting 1,000,000 times power up. An immortal perpetual priest got his hands on the device and he wanted to use it to awaken the Emperor. The idea is that he would put a descendant of Malkador the Sigillite, who had a similar psychic resonance, in the cage. The descendant would die but let out an extremely loud psychic death scream, a scream that would sound like Malkador's, which would be loud enough for the Emperor to hear, pull his consciousness back together, and then awaken from his coma. It's kind of sweet and sad when you think about it. The Emperor loved Malkador so much that hearing a psychic death scream that sounded like his would be enough to potentially bring him back. So what happened? Well, the Emperor very explicitly told the Custodes via his dreams that they needed to stop the event from happening. A team of Custodes travels to this world and they barely managed to stop the event in time, hence no Malkador scream. Now you could argue that the Emperor was just trying to save the descendant, however he was dead before the Custodes could save him, so more than likely it was just the Big E trying to stop the resurrection attempt. Either he did not want to get awoken this way, it was not the right time to be awoken, or it would not awake him and just cause issues. I'm of the belief that it would have created a flawed awakening. The Emperor's consciousness would be shocked and pulled together, but he would then be distracted. His body still withered and the Astronomicon would go out. It would like be getting woken up from a coma by having your balls tasered and a bucket of ice water splashed onto you at the same time. Not idealio. There are numerous branches of the Inquisition which are dedicated to the study of death and the soul in order to attempt a resurrection on the Emperor. Revivificationism are one example, who wish to study the science of death and how the soul leaves the body. As such, they regularly capture Elder and experiment on them due to the vibrance of their souls. Then there is the more radical Horicians, named after Horus, who believe that they can use the power of chaos to bring back the Emperor, which, yeah, no, good luck buddy boys. This branch is mostly made up of other Emperor revivalists from other branches that were sick of their orders making zero progress. Other branches, like the Animolian Beholders, would be keen on an Emperor return, but are also just happy to keep an eye out for signs of his continued influence and divine presence. Basically, all Inquisition branches that are actively working towards an Emperor resurrection are considered radical and even heretical. There was a recent incident where a group of Inquisitors and Mechanicum adepts discovered that the Golden Throne was failing, so they tried to enlist the help of some Dark Eldar to fix it and potentially even heal the Emperor, as it was discovered that the core parts of the throne use ancient Eldar tech. But this operation fell apart and ended in bloodshed, as often happens when you try work with the Dark Eldar. So technically, the Golden Throne is only around a decade to a century or two from total failure. This leads into the next popular resurrection theory: kill the Emperor. The Emperor is a perpetual, which means he can regenerate from almost all wounds, no matter how devastating. Decapitation, incineration, warp blasting, you name it, he can regenerate from it. Many people believe that the effort of being on the Golden Throne is killing the Emperor just as fast as he is healing, thus leaving him in this stagnant limbo. Relieving him from the pressure of the Golden Throne could theoretically result in him standing his ass back up and coming back to life. Now yes, there are a lot of issues and unknowns here. Could killing the Emperor activate the Talisman of Seven Hammers, thus destroying all of Terra? Would taking him off the Golden Throne break open the Webway portal and flood Terra with demons? Would the Astronomicon blink out? Last time it did, demons manifested on Terra itself. Would he even manage to heal? After all, his wounds were inflicted by the Chaos Demigod Horus, who was able to permanently kill Alanis Person, another perpetual. Some Inquisitors have theorized about this resurrection attempt, with a general consensus being that even if it worked perfectly, it would still probably be an overall negative for humanity, and worst case, you kill your own god and doom your own species. Not very conducive to the Inquisition's overall goals. Okay, so now we've seen the actual attempts made to bring the Biggie back to fighting form, but how do I think it could happen using the current technology, plot devices, and so on in the current setting? Well, 40k has time and time again made a massive point that if the factions stopped fighting and worked together, they could achieve almost anything. Anytime the Imperium and the Tau, or Necrons, or even the Orcs team up against the Nids get anally fucked to death extremely easily. Last time the Imperium and the Eldar teamed up, Guilliman came back to life. The team up between the Imperium and the Necrons almost resulted in the closure of the Eye of Terror and a permanent defeat of Chaos. Hence, a genuine Big E resurrection would require help from one or more Xenos, likely the Eldar and the Necrons, as they have the best spirit magic and technology. The Golden Throne is also made from Eldar technology, with the potential for it to even have Necron tech in it as well. As a side note, Drazyn the Infinite once made an offhand comment that he could do a way better job of restoring and preserving the Emperor than the Imperium had. But then again, Drazyn would just want to display him in a museum, not use him to save the galaxy, so take that with a grain of salt. So to bring the Emperor back, Guilliman would need to strike a deal with the Silent King as well as the Ynnari, perhaps pushed by an unstoppable Tyranid incursion or an overwhelming chaos onslaught. The Silent King and his greatest minds, combined with the efforts of the Ynnari, which would include a number of Dark Eldar by the way, not to mention Belisarius Cawl would also be involved, would be quite a dream team. They would first need to stabilize and massively upgrade the Golden Throne to take a lot of burden off the Emperor. At the same time, the Ynnari would use their significantly greater connection to the Webway to genuinely seal the Webway gate permanently shut, taking even more pressure off the Emperor. Then with the technological side of things sorted, the Dark Eldar would use their flesh tech to reforge and restore the Emperor's body. Then there would be a final step. A device made using the genius of the Silent King and Cawl would be attached to the Emperor, which would then allow for the Ynnari to channel the power of a million Psyker sacrifices into the Emperor, acting as a sort of power source that would pull his fractured psyche back together. Perhaps the device that channels that is the Talisman of Seven Hammers, which is revealed to have a secondary purpose. After all, the Emperor literally gene-coded the blueprints of the talisman into Vulcan at birth, so it'd be odd that it was never really used, just sort of abandoned. After all, it wasn't just a doomsday device. Vulcan initially used it as an anti-chaos compass that guided him to Terra, so it wouldn't be a stretch to think it was the final piece of the puzzle to bring the Biggie back. Fuck, maybe even Vulcan is is present and he sacrifices his perpetualness as part of the ritual. With all these pieces in place, using tech and magic from humanity, the Elder and the Necrons, I believe the Emperor could be given a clean awakening. Funnily enough though, this might actually not be a good idea. The Emperor in his current state may not be leading the crusade from the front, blasting bitches with his flaming sword and being dope as hell, but he is significantly more powerful now than he ever was in the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy. In the Great Crusade he was a beast, but there were times when he struggled against orcs or was injured in assassination attempts against them or so on. But in the current setting, he literally brought Guilliman back to life after he was killed by Mortarion, and then he also set fire to Nurgle's garden, from halfway across the galaxy away. He is also keeping the Astronomicon alight and will occasionally influence events from across the galaxy, saving entire worlds without people realizing it. A flesh and blood Emperor could quite literally be a massive nerf, but holy fuck, I would love to see it. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then subscribe. We are so fucking close to 600k, it actually hurts, and boy do I have some treats for you guys and gal when we get there. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.